I used to think loyalty was everything. When I was diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma at 41, my world turned gray. The kind of gray that sinks its teeth into your bones, stealing the warmth from everything you love. The coffee shop I built from scratch bean and brew suddenly felt like a distant dream, something too delicate for a dying man to hold on to. My best friend Leo stepped up without hesitation. We'd been friends since college roommates, co-founders of our campus radio station, godfathers to each other's kids. He even stood beside me when my wife walked out, unable to handle the weight of illness. Leo was the one who picked up the shattered pieces. "You need to focus on fighting," he said over beers in my backyard, his eyes glassy. "Let me take the reins for a while." Hesitated, but the chemo was knocking me out cold most days and the business was bleeding cash. We drafted a temporary transfer of ownership agreement, trusted him like a brother, didn't even read all the fine print. I just signed. Against every odd, I survived. The cancer shrank. My hair started growing back. My appetite returned, along with a strange kind of clarity, the kind only death's doorstep can provide. I showed up at Bean and Brew one morning, excited to get back into the groove. But the door code had changed. Weird. I knocked until someone finally let me in. The barista new girl I didn't recognize looked nervous. Leo's not in today. You'll have to call him." That sinking feeling hit me before I even touched my phone. Leo didn't answer. Not that day. Not the next. Not the entire week. When I finally cornered him at a Chamber of Commerce event, he acted like he barely recognized me. Gave me some corporate jargon about how the business had evolved and that it was better if I focused on my health. "I'm fine, Leo," I said through clenched teeth. "That's not how the paperwork reads, Ethan." I stared at him. "What do you mean? You signed over controlling interest? It's mine now." I laughed. I genuinely thought he was joking. Then he pulled up the document. Not the one I remembered. This one had pages I'd never seen. Terms and conditions rewritten in legalese that stripped me of every ounce of leverage. Permanent transfer. No buyback clause. I nearly threw up. I spent the next 3 weeks in a fog. Friends stopped calling. My bank account started dipping. I was living off what was left of my savings and pride. Every time I walked past my old café, it felt like someone punched me in the ribs. I showed up once, mid-morning, made a scene, screamed, cried. They called the cops. I let them. Let everyone believe I'd cracked. Even Leo, especially Leo, that was the first move in my endgame. What he didn't know was that during all those chemo days, I'd developed a taste for reading. Legal thrillers mostly, then legal blogs, and actual case files. I learned how small business law worked, how ownership could be challenged under certain conditions, fraud, coercion, mental incapacity, and I wasn't just reading, I was documenting. Emails, texts, bank records. The date stamps that proved my signatures on some of those revised agreements didn't match up with my treatment schedule. I even had one signed while I was under heavy sedation. The trap was already being baited. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I preferred mine calculated, paper trail, meticulous, and just a little bit poetic. I started by playing pathetic. I stopped shaving, wore the same hoodie everywhere. Hung around downtown like a ghost. Word spread Ethan's not doing well, poor guy. Cancer's not the worst thing that happened to him, Leo was. I kept a low profile. No social media. No email. Just enough visibility to let the narrative take root. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I got to work. I hired a paralegal, Lana. Not a lawyer, not officially. But she was brilliant, and just got dumped by her attorney so she had free time and an axe to grind. I paid her cash, and we met in a public library under the pretense of helping me with my memoir. Together, we dissected every version of the contract I had on file. Leo had done what all cocky people do. He left a digital mess. Changes saved to PDFs with timestamps. Metadata buried in cloud drives. An older file was even auto-uploaded to our shared Dropbox, because he'd used my laptop once when his died. Sloppy. We found discrepancies. Signatures on dates I was hospitalized. Clauses added with different fonts. One paragraph so poorly edited, it had his initials in the tracked changes. Goldmine, but I wasn't done. Next, I contacted 4 former employees. 2 were willing to talk. One had been fired after questioning the ownership change. Another had been offered a bonus to lie to a bank during a small business loan application. That loan? Secured in the business S name using false financials, submitted 3 weeks after I was supposedly removed from the company. Fraud. Wire fraud. At best civil litigation. At worst federal crime. Still, that wasn't what would bring Leo down. It would take something he valued more than money. His pride. Every June, the city hosted the Small Biz Expo downtown. Leo lived for it. Its flashy booths, business card bragging rights, local Entrepreneur of the Year awards. He'd already plastered social media with Bean and Brew's gold-plated espresso machine and their custom nitro brew tap. I booked a booth too, under a new name, Gray Matter Consulting. Just a shell, a borrowed laptop, a banner printed with one phrase: own your business before someone else does. The buzz was immediate. I stood there in a tailored suit, 10 pounds heavier and way more alive than anyone expected. I handed out pamphlets outlining 5 red flag mistakes small business owners make when signing partnership agreements. Each one a shot at Leo. He was 3 booths down, watching me like I'd crawled out of the grave. Around lunchtime, a local news outlet stopped by. "Ethan, is that really you?" "It is," I smiled, cancer-free, back on my feet, just trying to help other folks not make the same mistakes I did. They ate it up. Leo, on the other hand, looked like he'd swallowed a hornet's nest. That night, I sent him an email, short and simple, subject terms and conditions. "Body, you'll want to check the Dropbox folder titled Insurance Documents, especially the ones from April 4th, 2024. The silence was glorious. It took Leo less than 12 hours to call me. At 3:17 a.m., my phone lit up with his name. I didn't answer. At 8:06 a.m., I got a message. "We need to talk." Finally, some honesty. I agreed to meet in a public park, like 2 spies trading state secrets. He showed up in loafers and panic sweat. The charming entrepreneur mask was cracking. "You made your point," he started. "Let's talk buyout." I smiled. "No." He blinked. "No, I'm not selling. I'm reclaiming," he blustered. "You have no grounds." I slid a folder across the bench. Inside were copies of the altered contracts, screenshots of the metadata, and an affidavit from the barista he bribed to lie on his SBA loan app. His face paled. "You can't prove I knew. Don't need to. The IRS doesn't care who clicked submit. They just want to know why an owner who was legally removed from a business still has an IP address attached to loan documents." He closed the folder slowly, his hand trembling. "What do you want?" he asked, finally small. I leaned in. "I want you to choke on your own ego." Lana helped me retain a real attorney well known in business litigation, the kind who smiled like a shark and wore socks that cost more than my rent. We filed a civil suit for fraudulent transfer of ownership, citing medical vulnerability and evidence of forged documents. Simultaneously, we tipped off the SBA and the IRS about the loan fraud, complete with evidence packets. Leo was served at the café. I made sure it happened during the morning rush. The fallout was swift. The loan froze. Payroll bounced. Staff walked out. Bean and Brew was bleeding. 3 weeks later, my lawyer offered him a deal. He could sign the business back to me, drop the fraudulent claims, and avoid a federal investigation. If he paid back the loan personally and disappeared from any business leadership for the next 5 years, he folded. Cowards always do when their money's at stake. The first thing I did when I walked back into Bean and Brew was tear down the stupid neon sign Leo had installed. "Life starts with coffee." I replaced it with something better. "Earned. Right. Not taken." I rehired 2 of the old staff, gave them bonuses. Lana became our operations manager. The cafe was smaller now, leaner, but every inch of it felt like mine again. Right. One morning, a young entrepreneur stopped by. She asked about partnerships, about trust. I poured her a cup of coffee and said, "Never sign anything when you're sick, grieving, or drunk. And always read the terms and conditions." She laughed. But I didn't. I'd lost a year of my life, almost lost my business, and watched someone I loved turn into a stranger. But in the end, I got everything back. And Leo, last I heard, he was consulting on LinkedIn, pitching brand workshops for resilient business owners. The irony was almost worth the heartache. Almost.
Thank you for listening. Please take the time to like and subscribe for more drama-filled stories. It means a lot to us.